This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to TopCatTeamSales.com. That's TopCatTeamSales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for downloading another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski.
Bada boom! Realest guys in the room! How you doing?
What's up, cuz?
Christmas has come and gone. The Lions draft is now wrapped up nicely with some paper and packaged underneath your tree. Now we've got to break this down.
We will definitely do that. But a little bit of DSP curse action happened. Did you see what happened to our guy Enzo? Did you hear what happened?
Yeah, I seen it. Yeah. Dude, he's done until May 20th now.
It was scary. I watched it live. I was a little bit okay with the injury, being that I've watched the UFC, and it looked like the way he fell is similar to the way that UFC fighters look when they get knocked down that instant, and the ref kind of stops the fight, and I've seen that look before.
Their body goes stiff like that?
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. So I've seen it before, but it was very concerning when they stopped the fight, and the way, when they kept showing the replay, it just made it worse. So I thought the WWE handled it really bad. Like they showed replay after replay, and it really looked like he might have broke his neck. He could have been paralyzed. It was a scary thing, and it kind of at the beginning of the pay-per-view brought a little bit of a lull and a sadness to the event. But the rest of the wrestlers picked it up the whole night. I mean, literally every wrestler tried their absolute best and kicked it up a notch and had to go a little bit longer to cover because the match ended in like 7 minutes. But I was like, come on, dude, this guy is an up-and-coming star. You see it. All the people that are fans of wrestling seen it. Big ups to Enzo, dude. He was okay. Got out of the hospital that night. Tweeted everyone was cool. But whoo, that was scary. I'm like, come on, dude. Seriously?
Big Cass was a mess, dude. He was sitting there crying in the back. He had to be consoled by like some medics and WWE personnel. It was crazy. Do you think he was out, though, before he hit his head on the mat? Because he hits the rope, and at that point, he looks either dazed or he's kind of going away. And then his head bounces off the mat, and then his head bounces off the concrete on the ground as he slides through the ropes. Yeah,
you definitely realize that a guy that small gets catapulted, and I was trying to figure out what was he trying to do because it looked like he went all awkwardly into that second rope and catapulted his head into the mat. I was just like, and then now when anyone goes into the ropes, I get a little nervous. Like, are they going to get catapulted? Because about maybe 8 months to a year ago, a Mexican wrestler kind of did the same thing where he was in the ropes, took a move when he was laying on the ropes and got like a serious neck injury and passed away. So those ropes, man, they're scary. They just have to protect themselves. Enough with all this crazy stuff. Just get in and out of the ring and be entertaining. Whew.
I don't know if he slipped or if he was just trying to slide underneath the ropes, but something happened there. It was a move gone wrong, and you're right, WWE, you know what, I think initially WWE handled it the right way because when there's an emergency like that, you usually see the ref go up with the two hands and X him out, and then they just called the match right there. What I thought was very tasteless was what the Vaudevillains did the very next day on Raw. Did you see that?
Oh my gosh.
Where they came out and they started just mocking him and just making all kinds of different puns to his neck injury and into the things that he says. So that was pretty crazy. I was like, whoa, that's pushing the envelope right there.
Nothing's off limits because he's okay. He just suffered a concussion. We don't know what grade it is, but yeah, obviously he's going to be out probably until June. So let's just hope that, nothing like that happens again on live television. Because I was like thinking too, man, Bret Hart must be freaking out, dude, because he was in the building for the pay-per-view. He had that whole incident where his brother passed away live on an event, and now he sees this. He must be like, I'm never coming back. Right. I don't care. I'm just staying home.
I don't want to do this stuff ever again.
I'm not coming back, dude. I can't see that kind of stuff. So, that was definitely an interesting start and an interesting end to the weekend. But before we talk about the Lions, we have a fun, packed podcast here on the Doc and Jock Show. We have Dan Miller. He's going to come in, hopefully, break down his thoughts regarding the draft and what he thought were the value picks or picks that maybe might have been challenging. And the second half of the podcast, we have to talk about the story that's kind of growing a lot of different legs, this whole Connor Cook story, because it's one of those, it basically, besides the whole Tunsil ordeal, it probably was the secondary story in the entire draft in terms of a guy that was projected top 10 by us. A lot of people thought first round based on his wins and talent, ends up being taken in the fourth round. So we'll talk about that. But a lot of people are blowing up our Twitter. A lot of people are blowing up Facebook. Captain America, baby. You going to see it? You planning on?
Of course.
I didn't understand, like, maybe because my focus is on sports and a bunch of other things in movies, I didn't see no press for this. I don't know
Dude,
if
it's been everywhere.
Where? I didn't see it. I didn't see it until yesterday. The first time I saw it was like, I don't get the concept of like team. You could tell me about it.
Like even Sports Center's doing stuff.
Well, now I'm kind of not watching SportsCenter that much.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. So basically what this goes off of a story arc from, I believe, early 2000s, early to mid 2000s. It was a series called Civil War. Basically what happens is the government wants to come in and they want to identify all of the superheroes. They want their full names, they want their birthday, they want all their information. And basically you are now becoming an employee of the government. So what happens is Tony Stark leads one side, Captain America leads another side. And Stark is all for this. He feels like there has to be some regulations, there has to be some control. While Captain America is like, you are basically turning us into your army, and you're going to use us for what? You know, and Cap wants to be able to go out there, and if he sees a problem, he wants to be able to address it, not have to go through certain protocols. He feels like the protocols will allow things to get messy. So now what you have two teams that team up. You've got Iron Man's team, you got Captain America's team, and they basically battle it out. And with this movie, it looks like they're going to do a really great job. All the reviews from it say this is the best superhero movie to come out yet. You get a guy like Black Panther, who is, the way he looks right now, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. And it looks like they're finally going to get Spider-Man right, because Spider-Man's going to be making an appearance in this. That was probably the one that everybody was sitting on pins and needles for, because they have made so many movies and they have done so many different things, and everything's just kind of like, it's okay. It's not great, but it's not bad. But this one I heard is exceptional. Exceptional.
Team Iron Man versus Team Captain America.
Pretty much. That's what it is.
Hashtag, what team are you?
I love Tony Stark, but for what they're fighting for, I'm Team Cap all day.
All right. Yeah, I saw some people.
I hate the government. Come on.
I was like, okay, it's another great movie, Captain America.
I wear the tinfoil. You know the deal.
So you're planning on seeing it this weekend?
9/11 was an inside job. Get at me.
You guys go see it this weekend? We'll get a review next week?
I got to see what's up with the wife, because she wants to go see it, because she might be a bigger comic book person than I am. But she's got a bachelorette party going on. So, hey, I'm free this weekend, y'all. Holler at me.
That's good. So it could be a very, very bad weekend for you.
This is bad. That's right.
Adam has a chance to be all alone, free to his own devices. Oh, brother.
Oh, no!
So we'll see what's going on.
Party at Adam's house.
You know what? If I do see it, I will let you know, and we'll work it into next week's show. If not, it'll be seen within a week or two.
Okay. So now everyone's been talking about the draft. Now we've had a week to kind of digest everything. In terms of kind of the perception that we're getting on Twitter and the response from the local media, everyone's kind of okay with it. A lot of people, based on past drafts, would have been like, you know what, let's just make sure the Lions don't botch anything, that they don't do anything to hurt the club or make picks that will definitely, be wasted. There could be one pick you could look at in this draft where you go, of the 10, this is a throwaway pick. But overall, I'm happy with it. I like the fact that I'm not overly excited. I like the fact I'm not overly devastated by the overall picks. Based on the 10 picks and what was taken and to fill the needs of what you've seen with the Lions, they were okay. And they are now a better team with these guys added and drafted than they were beforehand. So all is good. I'm okay with what Bob Quinn did. It looked like he was organized. And I really like the fact that after the draft, he just fired 2 more people. So starting off the week on a good note, like, okay, thank you for your guys' service. You did your job. Okay, we've come to the end of the line. See ya.
Pink slips. Did you use the word safe when you described this? Because I feel like this was a very safe draft. He didn't sit there. He didn't trade up. He didn't trade back. He basically stayed status quo. He sat there, and whenever you take a lot of linemen, usually it's looked upon as a safe draft because you didn't sit there and make a splash by going out getting a high-skilled position player. And I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely A-okay with it because he didn't sit there, didn't reach for anybody. He didn't trade back and sit there and lose anything. He didn't trade up and lose anything. Overall, it was a very safe draft, and sometimes safe is successful. According to all the analysts out there, and again, you can't judge a draft until 3 years down the line. You got to give them some time to see how they mature and what they actually bring to the table and how this team's going to use the players that they picked, because there's already talks about moving guys around, D tackles to D ends and playing them inside, playing them outside on the D line. You got tackles that you drafted that may play as guards. You got guards that you drafted that may play as centers that you drafted as guards. It's gonna change. It's an ever-moving situation for the Detroit Lions here. I think it's a good draft. I'm not overly critical of it. I thought the first 3 rounds he hit. I thought he hit them hard too. I think you've got 3 starters there that will come in next season and make an impact, and that's what you want. I think rounds 4 through 7, that's when a lot of question marks get raised. And there are some things that we'll delve into a little bit later on in this topic here where we can talk about that. But I thought the first 3 rounds, exceptional. The next 4 rounds, I'll give you a passing grade, but it's just barely a passing grade.
Yeah, no, the latter half of the draft is where a lot of teams kind of bulk up and find guys that are diamonds in the rough. Now, the Lions are hoping that these guys that they've picked can potentially, be those guys. But, 5th, 6th, 7th round guys are guys that are kind of at risk for being cut in the preseason, let's be honest. But teams that are successful have found those diamonds in the rough, and the biggest team that did it is the New England Patriots, who found the pick that has now really going to be looked at forever, the pick in the 6th round to get Tom Brady. So that'll be the marker that a lot of teams look at and say, hey, you can find guys there, and a lot of guys that have been drafted lower have come around now and even been undrafted and come aboard and had success. So that's why this attitude has started to kind of evolve and say, hey, this draft is something that's very important, and you shouldn't throw away picks on maybe long snappers per se. Let's just start with the first pick. The way the draft evolved, you had a situation where a question mark arose as to whether the Lions would actually draft Tunsil because of the fact that he fell. Now, you obviously would have had to trade up to get him, and probably the thinking is that the cost might have been a little high in order to move up to get him. If he was there, I almost certainly believe he would have been drafted. So the way it shook out, I'm almost certain some calls were made, and I don't think that the price matched up, because Tunsil is a guy that arguably was at one point a number 1 pick. So he has talent, probably a little bit more than Taylor Decker, but your situation in terms of your concern regarding Conklin versus Decker was eradicated because the Titans manned up and moved way up. They traded, I think, to the 8th spot to get him. So that was much respect. The highest draft pick now, I think, since Charles Rogers at some point where he got drafted 8th. That was awesome. Great move for Tennessee, and their draft was awesome. But the pick was safe. I personally wanted them to go with Shaq Lawson or Darren Lee potentially. But when the pick was made, I get it. I understand, though, I'm not as super excited as other sites like PrideOfDetroit.com, Detroit Sports Nation are grading this pick very high already in the A range right away. I'm of the opinion, wait and see. You understand that he's probably going to start at the right spot, but at that spot at 16, potentially you wish there was a guy that just was ready-made left tackle, protect Stafford's blind spot. The idea is that maybe Decker can evolve into that left tackle, but right now he's not slotted. I think his initial thoughts and his initial role will be starting right tackle.
As the draft unfolded, I was more high on taking Shaq Lawson with that pick because the guy I originally wanted was Conklin. He was already gone by the 8th spot. Tunsil, if Tunsil fell to him, I'd have been okay with it, I guess. But the more and more I look at Tunsil and his interactions with not just the media, but with just people and the people around him, I just feel like he's not hyper intelligent. And if you're going to draft a lineman, he has to be smart. He's got to be the second smartest guy on the team behind your quarterback. And sometimes, depending on who your quarterback is, your linemen have to be smarter than your quarterback because they're the ones calling out the coverage so your quarterback can see and call out the correct play. That all being said, I would have been preferred Shaq Lawson. They took Conklin. This is just a issue I have with the draft and in my own draft philosophy.
They took Decker.
I apologize. With my draft philosophy, if you're going to draft a offensive lineman in the top half of the draft, so the first 16 picks, he has to be a plug-and-play left tackle. Otherwise, I'm trying to fill another need that I have on my team. All reports on Taylor Decker are that he is a right tackle. He's going to start at right tackle. He's not real good in pass protection. He's a better run blocker than he is a pass pro. So that being said, I have a little bit of an issue with this pick because you need to address your left side. You know, Riley Reef has been a turnstile for the last 2 years. You're going to plug him in on your right. Okay, great. So now your right side solidified. What are you going to do with your left side? And if this guy's not very good in pass protection, all of his marks for the last 2 years have been very, very low for pass protection. Now, that may have something to do with the offense that was ran at Ohio State, but at the same point, you were getting great coaching at Ohio State. So something's not jiving here. I just prefer you take a plug-and-play left tackle if you're going to draft in the in the top half of the draft of the first round. If that's not the case, I'm looking somewhere else. I'm okay with the pick, though. It looks like he's going to be an immediate starter, whether he takes the right side or the left side. Thoughts around the league are that he will start on the right side and then transition over to the left side. If that happens, I'll have to live with it.
Do you think that, and do you agree with the philosophy? Obviously, it's obvious that Matthew Stafford had a big influence on this draft, whether he had direct knowledge of who they were going to take or the philosophy. Obviously, when you take 2 of your first 3 picks are on the offensive line, being center and a potential right tackle, okay, it's obvious that there was a concern and a look at that because Matthew Stafford was on his ass. You're going to ask this guy to take over and really try to elevate his game even more. Or you could say, well, you're going to try to limit Matthew Stafford and go toward a more effective run game, which you need to be successful. Do you think that the Lions were correct in terms of going the first 2 out of 3 picks being on the offensive line, whereas a lot of us really said, listen, build on that defense. You can kind of plug guys in on the offensive line a little bit later or try to find those, diamonds in the rough through the draft later on.
I don't think Stafford had an impact on it. I think I think Bob Quinn looked at what he was working with and said, hey, we're really weak here. I mean, Matt Stafford was hit so many times last year. It was a gaping need. They needed to address that offensive line. It was bad. On top of that, you are in a draft that is really deep defensively. So you can get picks in the 3rd round. You can get picks in the 4th round. And if you look at the way their draft kind of spilled out after that, it was very defense heavy along the way there. So I don't have a problem with it. I don't think that Stafford had major input into, hey, you guys got to get me a left tackle. Hey, you guys got to get me a new center. Hey, you guys got to get me a guard. I think Bob Quinn realized what they had. They don't have a lot of depth on that offensive line. It's not a very good offensive line. They can't run the football to save their life. So what you do is you sit there and you draft the pieces that you need. And what I think worked out really well, again, they didn't reach for anything. They let the draft board come to them. Hey, do we need a center? Yeah, Travis Swanson, shit. So Graham Glasgow's there. The guy's 6'6", 310. Yeah, let's go get him. On top of it, he's smart. He knows what he's doing.
No, you can see the theme. Big. They went big.
Thick guys. Let's go get him. Taylor Decker, he's there at 16. We need an offensive lineman. Could we take Shaq Lawson? Absolutely we could. Right now, more of a pressing need is addressing that offensive line. Let's take that. Later on in the draft, they come back and they take an offensive guard. And this offensive guard played offensive tackle. He played left side his entire career in a heavy pass pro team. And his pass pro grades are exceptional. So now what you have is you have a guy who's probably going to transfer over to a guard. But if you need him in crunch time, if something bad happens and you have no left tackles on your team, this guy can now slide over. So now you have some versatility, you have some depth, and you're going to have competitions up and down that line. So I think it worked out fine. I don't think Stafford had a huge input in any of this.
No, you
don't even know. Stafford might not even be here in 2 years.
No, I don't think so.
I know. He's going to be here. We're sitting up at the table right now ready to give him $27 million a season.
Exactly. And when you see the quarterback that you did take, Jake Rudock in the 6th round, you know that they're not really looking for supreme competition. Mm-hmm. Had they drafted Connor Cook, then you could say, oh, they drafted potentially the guy that could replace Stafford. I just think that they drafted a backup, so that's what they did. But the good thing is, though, you really believe that, and in years past, you didn't really have this confidence. I really have the confidence that Glasgow, A'Shawn Robinson, and Taylor Decker should be starting and contributing fairly early, and that's what we need to see in these draft picks is guys that you can plug in there, do the job, and help this team right away. And with those first 3 picks, I mean, I would be kind of surprised if Glasgow doesn't beat out Travis Swanson. I mean, this dude is massive. I think he can be a guy that can be the center here for a long time, and doesn't hurt that, hey, you drafted center and quarterback from the University of Michigan, so it can't hurt there.
You know what? I'll go a step further. You can even include that 4th round pick, Miles Killebrew.
Muscle hammer.
The big, heavy hitter. He's a strong safety from Southern Utah. You can add him in there because I can see him playing nickel packages, coming up to stuff the run when it's like a 3rd and 2. So I can see him making an immediate impact as well.
the pick that kind of raised a little bit of everyone's eyebrow was the 5th round pick at 169, Antoine Williams. Georgia Southern is not a team that a lot of people look to in terms of finding film on guys. This is a guy that has potential, but I do think that they could have maybe did a little bit better with that 5th round pick. That was the pick when you say, well, which pick was the one that was your least favorite? 5th round, 169, Antoine Williams. I'm not sure what his impact's going to be. I just think that that might have been a project.
My 2 least favorite picks, and I said Jake Rudock would go probably in the 6th or the 7th round. I seen potential there for him to go in the 6th or 7th round. That being said, with what was still on the board, I didn't want them taking Jake Rudock. And I definitely didn't want them taking a long snapper. I didn't want them taking Jimmy Landis. So those were my 2 picks where I was kind of like sitting there scratching my head like, did we just throw 2 picks away? Because we need to add some depth to this team, and there are guys on the board who could probably plug in and make an impact on this team. Instead, you're going out drafting a long snapper. I mean, is it just me, or isn't Don Muehlbach a top 10 long snapper in this league? I mean, the guy is steady as a rock.
Yeah, but
he's one of the best lines they have, which is messed up because he's a long snapper.
Right. What the thinking is that you could have maybe made that move.
You could have got him up in undrafted free agency.
Exactly. Or you just don't draft a long snapper till next year. Let him play out this year. Get him next year.
That's one of those moves. It's like drafting a tight end in the top 10 picks. You just don't do it. You don't ever draft a tight end in the 1st round. You don't ever draft a long snapper. You can just go pick them up. Honestly, you can run down to your Save-A-Lot and go dig one out of a bushel bin.
Did you see that his initial reaction was, I was kind of shocked I was drafted?
Yeah. He was like, I didn't think I was going to get drafted. This is crazy. Yeah. Nobody thought you were going to get drafted. You're a long snapper. The hell's the point?
And, I don't like to see the national media laughing at our Lions, but when that pick was made, ESPN made it a yuck fest, and it was an interesting pick, one that at least is debatable in terms of, hey, why did you make it? But in the end, you could see the philosophy of depth, size, and competition. So they decided, hey, let's just go get a guy that maybe, just maybe, might be the guy that comes in and replaces Muehlbach, a guy that has been here and efficient for the better part of the last decade. But, hey, it's a later round pick. You can't, the weight of that mistake is lessened, in my opinion. And
the only way that this pick is viable is if Don Muehlbach has come to you and said, hey, I'm on the last year of my deal. Like, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. My body's breaking down. You're going to have to find somebody. And that this kid comes in and makes an immediate impact and gets that starting position over Don Muehlbach, and you just cut DM. That's the only way it works.
I wonder
only way.
I wonder if one of the scouts that got fired was the one that presented Dwayne Washington from Washington University, 7th round, pick 236. I'm not exactly sure why the Lions are attracted to running backs that are a little bit undersized and have issues with power and the ability to catch the ball.
Oh, what about health? Because the guy's always injured and he fumbles the ball more than Abdullah does. Honestly, no, it just that one infuriated me. That infuriated me, and I'm gonna explain why.
He's gonna be probably cut.
I'm gonna explain why when we sit there and we start breaking down what we wish Bob Quinn would have done differently. I'm gonna explain to you why, because I've got some issues. Go
ahead. Start with him. Why? If it wasn't for him, who would you have liked in that 7th round? That's the round where you can say it's kind of a throwaway round. A lot of 7th rounders don't really have a lot of impact, and most of them get cut.
Absolutely not. Not with the way this draft played out. All right, I'm not taking a running back that fumbles more than Abdullah does. I'm just not. We've seen what happened last year. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take an inside linebacker, because you need an inside linebacker that has a ton of upside. Plus, he's got a great name. Scooby Wright was still on the board. You have to remember, Scooby Wright's season last year was cut short. He only played 3 games because he had an ACL injury. The year before that, he won a triumvirate of defensive awards. The guy finished 9th in the Heisman voting. You know, the only defensive player to win the Heisman in the last, 25, 30 years? Charles Woodson. So this guy's finishing 9th in that. The guy has talent. He's got a high motor. They compare him to Zach Thomas. You remember Zach Thomas from Miami?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy had no neck, was basically a human chode, just out there, just a running wall, knocking dudes over, getting to the quarterback. That's this guy. You could have had this guy in your 7th round. That's getting a guy who's going to make an impact in a later round. And everybody's going to be like, man, that guy's Scooby Wright. He's got a funny name, but damn, he's good. Damn, he's good. Where did we get him at? Was he a 1st rounder, 2nd rounder, 3rd rounder? No, he was a 7th rounder. He was sitting there all day long, and they go and they take a running back who's got small hands and can't stay healthy. Great. In the 4th round, I wanted to trade back, maybe possibly take that D tackle, Aaron Billings, possibly even Willie Henry. These are 2 guys who, Andrew Billings, you can plug in the middle, and he's going to be a run stuffer. Willie Henry, you can sit there and you can do different things with him along your defensive line, play him inside, play him outside. I think there's more value there. I think Miles Killebrew would have been there in your 5th round. I had no problems with the 5th round. 6th round, I'm targeting a cornerback, maybe Blake Countess. We've seen him at the University of Michigan for some time, possibly even a wide receiver like Aaron Burbridge. I'm not taking a long snapper. That's my big issue in the 6th round. I'm just not doing these things. It just...
See, overall...
I think you add more depth to your team, and I think you make a better team that way.
No, I agree. I think there could have been a couple spots in the 5th and 6th round where you could have made significant upgrades. I think that the one that I slot into because I didn't like the pick at all was Antoine Williams in the 5th round. I felt like you could have went with a linebacker to help kind of maybe add depth with Stephen Tulloch and issues with DeAndre Levy. You could have went out and got Akron linebacker Jatavius Brown, who had a nice film, is a strong linebacker that has potential in this league. But overall, in terms of nitpicking, those 2 picks, 5th and 6th round, and obviously the long slapper and the long snapper were picks that you could have gone differently. But I don't believe the mistake was so devastating that it's going to significantly impact your team. I really believe the Lions think that Jake Rudock is going to be a serviceable backup or a guy that they can kind of build up and maybe move along, and maybe Jake Rudock can maybe find a spot where he gets those 1 or 2 opportunities if a quarterback goes down later on in his career and have that chance. But Jake Rudock, right now, you think his ceiling is game manager, but hey, there have been ultimate game managers out there like a Trent Dilfer. Hey, you never know. You never know with the quarterback, and you never know what is in his heart. And he did something in those workouts to show that, hey, I can be something. And hey, I know everyone's laughing at the storyline ideas, but it's very eerily similar to what New England did. In Tom Brady's first year.
There's multiple parallels.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Tom Brady
and people are laughing at it, but Tom Brady, remember now, Tom Brady didn't get into his 2nd year. I believe he started the 2nd or 3rd game of his 2nd year. He didn't throw that many passes his rookie season, which I do believe is going to happen to Rudock. Rudock's not going to see the field. I don't believe the guys later on outside of the muscle hammer are going to have too much impact. Those guys 4th through 7th, I believe the philosophy was depth. And that's what is a key component, which this Lions team doesn't have, is that if a guy that's a starter, that's projected to do a lot for this team, if he goes down, in previous years we were nervous crapping the bed. Now you're trying to build competition at different positions and saying, hey, if we can get to the philosophy of next man up and really believe it like the Patriots, we'll be in a much better spot. So overall, I was satisfied with the draft. I was, not too high, not too low. I still am very satisfied with the direction. My, nitpicking type thing would involve Bob Quinn's antics, holding a bat, being all nervous, being a little bit overly giddy, trying to call up Taylor Decker and be like, hey, you excited to be a Lion? Oh, you don't sound excited. A little bit of that kind of antics and showmanship was behind the scenes was a little bit weird to me. I would have much rather him be a little bit more calm, cool, and collected, but it's his first draft. I get it. It's not a big deal, but I would say he's been around this before. Why be a little bit nervous? You should kind of know what's going on.
What about the Fords sitting in on the draft?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the picture.
Looking like they're purse shopping.
I didn't get a chance to ask Jason. I'm like, oh my God. What was your, I was going to do a caption this war room, but you got Bob Quinn and you got Jim Caldwell looking all happy. And then you got, the Ford family women just sitting there. I wonder what, I really wanted to get a sneak peek into what they were actually talking about and things like that. And there's actually a photo of her making a call, getting on the line. They're involved, man. What are you going to do? It's just interesting in that they're all 70 plus.
You know what? I'm fine with it. As long as they're not doing what Jerry Jones does, I'm cool with it. Just know your role, cut the checks, stay in the background, let Bob Quinn handle this team, let him sink or swim, and let him handle Jim Caldwell. Don't have any influence on it. I'm cool with all that. Yeah,
so just quickly reviewing the draft in its entirety, obviously the storyline, the A-plus story that came out was the whole Tunsil ordeal and how crazy that actually played out in terms of a live cell phone hack revenge from a former financial advisor who got canned, got into his accounts. Obviously now this probably shouldn't happen again because all draft picks will probably change all their passwords the night of the draft or things like that. But to think that that could happen is really indicative of the era that we're in. Someone actually tried to get revenge on someone via getting dirt on them, knowing their crap, and spewing it to the world. And when that picture showed up, I was like, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that live as it's happening, you got this. But, as time passed, I realized that these teams already knew that. They already knew it. he had character issues and he dropped not because of what happened that day. It's shocking to us to see that play out, but they knew. They probably know the name of the company of the mask that he had. It's just one of those things where they probably knew in the interviews that he was a guy that would, under pressure, potentially would not rise to the occasion.
Right. I think that's probably the biggest issue after witnessing what unfolded. And you don't ever, honestly, it was real life drama. As you as you watch this kind of progress 20 minutes before the draft, and then I think it was like 40 minutes into the draft, it was just like, wow, this is insane. And then everything that unfolded afterwards with the draft, it was just nuts. The story of Laramie Tunsil, insane. And the one thing I think you can say is he doesn't deal with uncomfortable pressure well. And he doesn't come off as being intelligent. And I hesitate to say that because I don't want to kill the kid, but witnessing him handle the reporters, and nobody wants to be thrown in a position like that. You mean it's uncomfortable for sure. And on top of it, I don't even think he understood what was going on. I don't know if he knew the gravity of what was happening, because it seemed like he was getting informed of all this stuff kind of like on a delay. Like we all had the information, but he didn't have the information. So he's like sitting up there and they're asking him these questions. He's like, yeah, I took money. Yeah, I smoke weed.
I'm blessed, y'all.
Right. It just didn't, it looked bad on him.
What was worse though, here's the thing.
Like I said, I don't want to kill the kid, but he was put in a real bad spot.
You start to think, outside when you look at it, you go, okay, where are his handlers? Where are the people yanking him?
Oh, yeah.
It took an oversized...
Where's Jimmy Sexton at?
Yeah.
That's his agent. What's he doing? He needs to be sitting right next to him being like, we're not answering that. We're not answering that.
Yank him.
Put a hand over the microphone.
Yeah.
Just do that. We're not
Cut
answering.
the mic.
Right.
Yeah. No comment.
Nothing.
I think that's the first thing you get to realize when you start doing media training is those two words are like magic. No comment. I have to think about it. No comment. What do you think about this? No comment. I mean, that's probably the first thing you should realize. His handlers butchered it too. They went into a whole it's a very shameful thing that we're talking about this when we really need to look at who hacked him and things like that. But it's not that people poo-pooed the fact that he was hacked. It was the fact that some of the information that was revealed more scandal regarding his time at Ole Miss, revealed some unsavory type things that were going on, and it was like a situation where you aired out the dirty laundry of Ole Miss.
If you're a Big Ten school, you love this.
Oh, it was
you
awesome.
love this because it just shows how dirty the SEC is. The SEC is atrocious.
But everyone knows what's going on.
I know, but the NCAA never does a damn thing about it. That's another conversation for a different day. The NCAA gets their hand held by the SEC, and the SEC is like, oh, hey, so we want this. And next thing you know, NCAA is jumping all over it. There's a story I didn't want to talk about today, but you have your satellite cams. That was the SEC versus Jim Harbaugh. That's all that was. And guess what? They banned them. And then they sat there and they sat down. They actually used their heads and they thought about it. They're like, you know what? We're not going to ban these. Good job. Way to go, NCAA.
The first pick in the draft.
Way not to get bullied by the SEC.
The first pick in the draft that made me go, I'm not really sure, was the Bosa pick at number 3. I really felt like they could have got Tunsil and made a splash in the NFL draft. Going with Bosa, I felt was a mistake. And
but that defense was atrocious.
It was. They definitely had a need there, but I just felt when that first pick came out, 1, 2 went like I thought. 3 was the first surprise for me at San Diego. And then the rest of it was very interesting because it got chaotic with the trades and stuff. But I really got to realize in terms of a draft, mock drafts are great. And the guys that are doing it, I can see why they're putting out 6 versions, 7 versions.
They don't know anything.
They don't know anything.
No.
Because
it's all guess and speculation.
Because the NFL does a strong job and they're trying to do, you saw this year, a concerted effort to kind of conceal the information a little bit more. It wasn't like last year, you knew the picks almost 5 minutes before it aired on television via Twitter. You noticed because they would always pan to the player getting picked with their phone before it actually aired. This year, they made a concerted effort to try and make it a little bit more enjoyable to the viewer. And what they did was they wouldn't pan to the call until the pick was made. They'd go after the fact. The amount of information that was released on Twitter was way less, and it wasn't as it didn't come out as fast. And these teams are locking down information year after year. These writers and everyone that's talking about it is saying openly, we can't get jack crap for information.
Next year, I want you to watch the NFL Network's version of the draft because Mike Mayock always blows it. Always blows it. He'll say, oh, okay, well, I think they're going to take, player X, or they might go linebacker.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's always player X.
Exactly.
Like thanks, Mike Mayock. We know.
Right.
We know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, you just...
They don't
What are you
know.
doing?
They don't know. They're locking in information. These NFL writers and writers and journalists covering the teams have it so tough, man. I give them credit. It's absolutely wild. But overall, I liked the way they did it this year as opposed to years past. And man, can you imagine if you're Roger Goodell? He tried his absolute best, bringing in kids. He did everything except hand out dollar bills to everybody to try and change the perception. But
Oh no, the
he
best was him getting booed. Oh, it was great.
It was great.
I loved it. Hate Roger Goodell.
You know what? We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but we're going to talk to Dan Miller next, get him on the line. We're definitely going to talk about Connor Cook, but the NFL doubled back down, and this Tom Brady saga kind of reared its ugly head the last 8 days. Crazy. I mean, now he appealed it again, gets an extension. It's still being looked at. Why the hell is the story continuing to drag on like this?
Because it's a zombie. It
What's
won't
going
die.
on here?
It's a zombie, dude. It won't die. You got to chop the head off. You know how you chop the head off? Kill Roger Goodell. That's it.
Listen,
the only way.
If you got a job and you're making $40 million, why are you going to die on the hill for this? Die on the hill for guys that are smoking, marijuana on video. Die on the hill for domestic violence. Die on the hill for figuring out how your referees can make calls for the Lions.
On top of it,
Tom Brady, he's America's superhero.
on top of it, science has proven that it was the natural gas law. It went from being in a very warm room to being in a very cold area. It happens. Deflation happens. And the balls weren't even deflated all that much. It was only like 7 PSI per ball, which is natural. It's okay. It's in the laws of physics. And yet, Roger Goodell.
$40 million would calm down a lot of things for me. I'd be like, listen, I'm going to assign this to assistant number 5. Okay, fine. We lost the case. Fine. No big deal. I made a mistake. Move on. Collect your $40 million. Why are you dying? Why are you? It's a year later.
You got players getting drafted wearing gas masks, bongs, and you got dudes beating up women left and right, and you got guys like Greg Hardy who are sitting there saying that he's completely innocent. Have you seen pictures of her body? It was like she was painted with a black and blue and purple marker. He beat her senseless, and yet nothing's going on there.
Speaking of,
Don't look at that. Let's look at Tom Brady. Get the hell out of here, Roger Goodell. You're an idiot.
Speaking of superhero villains, how would you compare Roger Goodell? Because he just comes off like a villain, a guy that's coming back in the sequels, trying to kind of, squash our superheroes' dreams.
I absolutely hate Gary Bettman. Think he's the worst. Roger Goodell has usurped him. He is now the absolute worst. I can't stand
Joker
him.
status?
No, because I like the Joker.
Wait, fill me in. Educate me, because like I said, I'm a novice at best. Is Joker the preeminent, top of the line superhero villain, like echelon?
He is a super villain.
Yeah.
He is a super villain. In the Batman world, he is the number one.
Okay, so then real fast, who's on the Mount Rushmore of superhero villains?
Oh, do we have time for this?
Yeah, we got a lot of time. We can do whatever we want on this podcast.
On the Mount Rushmore
Joker.
of super villains here. Let's see. Joker would have to be on there. Let's see. Who else? So Joker's on there.
That's about the only one I know.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of Superman, but Lex Luthor's a pretty evil dude. What do we got going on in Marvel, in the Marvel universe here? Captain America's are Iron Man's are
Here's what we'll do.
Superman or Spider-Man.
Here's what we'll do. We'll dial up Dan Miller, get him on the line, get his take on the NFL draft. I'll let you research it a little bit during the break, and then as we interview Dan, we'll get a chance to also look at superhero villains in the Mount Rushmore. We'll recap that after our chat with Dan Miller. Let's get him on the line.
All right.
Stay with us. Doc and Jock, episode 143. Superhero talk, Dan Miller, talk about Connor Cook, all wrapped up in this very fine podcast. Best around, Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Stay with us.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wings shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
You're soft, you're sloppy. They calling me Poppy. I'm rolling in bands, you riding around and I beat up jalopy. How you doing? Pros wanna copy, but they are just not me. I'm up in the club, stacking the dubs and stuck in the lobby. Wanna act hard and eat, then take it easy, 'cause you soft.
All right, on the phone with us, he is the sports director at Fox 2, Lions play-by-play voice, which now can be heard this season on WJR 760 AM. Dan Miller on the line with us on the Doc and Jock podcast. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
I feel very excited, a renewed sense of hope coming after the Lions draft. I feel like Bob Quinn did an admirable job his first go-around. Give me your impressions on his first 2 picks as the general manager of the Detroit Lions.
Well, I think that, number one, you saw clearly that he had something that he wanted to get done, and that was to get this team bigger and better on both sides of the line. And I think that, that probably was a byproduct of looking at last year's tape and seeing a team that didn't run the ball, didn't protect the passer, and couldn't stop the run. And any coach you talk to every single week, they're going to tell you, stop the run the ball. Those are the keys to being successful. So, I think Taylor Decker was a guy that had been connected to the Lions because he was the 4th of the offensive tackles and expected that the other 3 would be gone. So Decker was there. They took him. He makes sense. He's a need, and he's a talent fit at that spot. And then A'Shawn Robinson is a guy that, some people like going in the first round. I get a little uncomfortable when people start talking about that because then, there's a reason people passed on him. There's some limitations there, obviously, that the NFL scouts see. But, whether you think he's a mid-first round talent, late first-round talent, to be able to get him in the second round is pretty significant. So, they got bigger on both sides of the ball right off the bat.
Do you agree? A lot of people are talking about, Bob Quinn's overall strategy, and some of the words that have been thrown around are safe, conservative, getting impact guys. But do you feel like, for his first go-around being a general manager in this league, that he got guys that can improve the Detroit Lions squad?
Well, I don't, safe means that he didn't do something crazy. Safe means that he stuck to the board and took guys that, for the most part, people thought were in the correct place in terms of their talent. And he took positions of need. I'm not even sure really what safe means. I just think it means he didn't draft a tight end. He didn't draft a receiver. He didn't draft a running back. He went after guys that seemed to fit exactly what they wanted to do. So I think it looked like he had a plan going in. He stuck to the plan. He didn't panic. He didn't feel like he had to jump up and down and move around the board. And I think that's a good thing. People are always saying, why didn't they trade up? Why didn't they do that? Well, part of the key to this draft that people like is that there's some depth to it, and they added some depth to the team. And if you look at the possibility of moving up or moving down, in particular, beginning of day 2, people thought, move up. Well, if you move up to get somebody, A, you might have been moving up to get A'Shawn Robinson. B, you're giving up some of your later picks to provide a depth to your class. Then you get to the end of day 2 and people think, jump up at the end of, at the beginning of round 4. Well, then you might have been giving up somebody in the back end of your class. So, sometimes the best bet is just to stay where you are, remain patient, let the board come to you. And it's about drafting the right guy when it ultimately does.
Yeah, and some of the question marks kind of occurred later in the draft, rounds 5 through 7. Obviously, the long snapper picking up Jake Rudock, quarterback from Michigan, in the 6th round. A lot of people are interested and fascinated with the person that may challenge Matthew Stafford down the line in the future at the quarterback position. Your thoughts on the Jake Rudock draft pick, and do you feel like with development that Jake Rudock could be a serviceable quarterback in the NFL?
That remains to be seen. I don't know that that I have a grip on where Jake Rudock is. I mean, he played really well at the end of last year. He played really well in the bowl game, did some terrific things. I want to see him play against this talent, and then we'll figure it out. I saw a lot of good things from him last year. I think he had one of, maybe if not the best offensive coaches in college football last year in Jim Harbaugh. So, there were times where I think he was throwing to wide open guys. There were times where he was throwing to guys that did have some tight windows, and he made the throw, in particular as the year went on. So, I mean, I'm a wait and see type of guy. I think there's a lot of intangibles that you like about Jake Rudock. Everything says he is a great guy, team guy. He's got some size to him. His arm strength is one I want to see at the NFL level. So, like pretty much any 6th round pick, I'll say let's wait and see before we pronounce that, this guy's going to be the next, backup that becomes the starter in the NFL. But I do think it's also a byproduct of, a general manager who says that you should draft a quarterback every other year. This is his quarterback for this year. Maybe there's another one in another couple of years, depending upon how Rudock does. But I've seen other coaches. Joe Gibbs used to believe in drafting quarterbacks all the time, and he would run them in and out of there. And ultimately, here's a guy who won Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. So let's see what ultimately happens here. It's a hot button pick because immediately half your group isn't going to like it because they're Spartan fans. Half your group is going to like it because they're Michigan fans. But I think it's one that you got to wait and see on.
Yeah, speaking of quarterbacks and hot button topics, Connor Cook was an individual that dropped in the draft, and for whatever position you believe is the reason why he dropped, do you feel like that maybe the Lions missed on an opportunity to draft an even better quarterback in the 4th round because of the fact that he slid?
Again, there's a difference between taking a quarterback in the 4th round and taking a quarterback in the 6th round. In the 4th round, the Lions drafted a guy that they're hoping can become their starting strong safety in Miles Killebrew. So you can make the case, would you have traded up to get a higher 4th round pick? Well, they did that last year, and they gave up this year's 3rd round pick to get Gabe Wright. I don't necessarily know that that's great business unless you really, really feel strongly about the guy. Look, I think Connor Cook has a chance to be a good player. There's clearly a significant number of red flags around him. We'll have to wait and see. At this point, it's up to Connor Cook. At this point, it's going to come down to how he handles his opportunity, which he will get from here on out. But, I was not one clamoring for the Lions to trade up and get Connor Cook. If he'd have been sitting there when they were picking at 111, when they took Miles Killebrew, I think at that point there's pretty good value to a Connor Cook, and you would have had to really consider it.
No, I agree with you. I think Oakland may be lucky in terms of having the ability just to sit him and let him learn behind Derek Carr, and maybe, in a few years trade him for maybe a 2nd or 3rd rounder, or if he gets an opportunity. I think, I think the fact that he actually dropped is going to help him be an even better quarterback. It'll give him some grit, give him some mettle, and hopefully he turns it around and has a successful NFL career.
That's up to him. I mean, really, that's up to him. It's up to him how he handles this and where he goes from here. I think the troubling thing is, I think there's a lot of emotion that goes into Connor Cook around these parts. Not a lot of emotion that goes into Connor Cook around the NFL, and there were a number of quarterbacks taken before him, and teams aren't in the business of not drafting a guy out of spite. There were reasons that they didn't draft him. It's up to him to whether they are personal, whether they are performance, whatever they are, he's now an Oakland Raider. He's going to get his chance, and it's what he does from here.
Dan Miller, Fox 2 sports director, on the line with us on the Doc and Jock podcast. Which pick do you believe in rounds 3 through 7 will have the most impact on the Lions in his first season?
I would think Graham Glasgow. I think he's got a chance to be the starting center for this team from day one. I think there's clearly a message there that Travis Swanson, what he did last year, wasn't good enough. Now, look, he had shoulder surgery. Maybe he comes back and he's a different guy and he's ready to compete, and Glasgow becomes your backup center and backup guard. So that's going to be a training camp battle, but it would not surprise me if Glasgow was to win that. I think Killebrew's got a chance. There is an opening at the other safety spot. Now, they've got a couple of veterans in there that could end up winning that spot ahead of him, and he may need a little bit of experience, but I think he's going to come in with a chance to be that type of player. I think Dahl is, at this point, probably a guy that gives them backup. He can play guard, which is what he's primarily going to be, maybe a little bit of tackle as well. I think Williams is a special teams guy, probably, with them being a nickel 70% of the time, most of the time you're going to look out on the field and not see him. It's going to be Tahir Whitehead and DeAndre Levy and Josh Bynes between the three of those. So those guys are the ones. I think Zettle's got a chance to be in the rotation as a defensive end. And look, Landis may outplay them all if he wins the long snapper spot. So we'll see how that goes. Washington, it seemed to me he is in the mix with a number of other guys at running back to try to prove himself.
Now, before we got on the air, we chatted for a few seconds, and you said that this time of year is a little bit busy after the draft. What does Dan Miller do now after the NFL draft, before preseason starts and training camp, and working with the Lions?
Well, we've had a number of season ticket events over the past couple of weeks, and we have a couple coming up that I take part in and MC with Bob Quinn at a couple of them, and Jim Caldwell at a couple of them, and Rod Wood at a couple of them. So it's a busy time in terms of some of the added events that they give to season ticket holders. And then, the weeks before and the weeks after the draft, we had a half-hour special on Fox 2 for the draft over the weekend. So that kept us busy putting that thing together all weekend. So there's some things happening. The mini camps start, the rookie camps start, and then, most of the people who have NFL jobs and work around NFL teams or work on NFL broadcasts, try to slam in a little vacation now before training camp starts, because that's when everything kind of gets on lockdown. So there's plenty to keep us busy, but also try to find some time to get away a little bit, and that's what I'll be doing.
All right, we'll get you out of here on this. Your first couple interactions with Bob Quinn after the draft, I seen on the Fox 2 special. Your first initial impressions of him as the leader of the Detroit Lions?
Confident, believes he has a way of doing things, is not going to waver, is setting up this organization exactly the way he wants it, and I'd love to sit here and guarantee you that he's going to be successful. Nobody can do that, but I will tell you this. If he's not successful, it won't be because he didn't do things his way. He is doing things his way. He is putting his stamp on this team, and I think that the interesting thing is going to be, and he pretty much intimated this the other night, the guys that have been here no longer have anybody in that front office with emotional ties to them in terms of keep them, let's wait and see, that was my pick. Everything is now wide open. These new guys are his guys. The old guys have to prove themselves. Everybody's got to prove themselves, but it's a different day in Allen Park. The hope, obviously, is that it leads to some better results. And change is exciting, and change brings opportunity, and opportunity is exciting. So we'll wait and see. But he's an impressive guy. But when you get to the point where he's at, you should be. You're confident. You don't get there, if you're a wallflower, if you don't believe that you have the wherewithal to do this job. But, the way he carries himself, he makes you believe that he's moving it in the right direction. Time will tell if he is.
Dan Miller, always kind enough to chat on the Detroit Sports Podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Definitely, if you're listening for the Lions, check out WJR 760 and their programming. You'll hear Dan and Brandy breaking down things over the course of the summer, and we always look forward to chatting with Dan Miller. Thank you so much. We look forward to chatting down the line.
All right, man. Thank you.
That was Dan Miller, Fox 2 Sports Director, Lions play-by-play voice. Always easy and accessible. I appreciate his time. He was very funny. He was like, oh, man, I apologize. I had my schedule all discombobulated, but he was able to find time to chat with Doc and Jock here on the podcast. I always appreciate guys that are in the know that definitely like to pick up the phone and answer. So that was a very fun interview. I appreciate his insight, talking about Connor Cook and, the reasons why he dropped and kind of his potential in the future. So always check out Dan Miller. And again, you can hear him on 760 AM WJR. All right, I know, Adam, you checked it out a little bit. Superhero Mount Rushmore.
All right, my super villain Mount Rushmore.
Super villain Mount
That's
Rushmore.
right. So we're going to go with the Joker because he's probably the number one badass in all of the DC universe. On top of it, he's absolutely insane. After that, Green Goblin. He's tormented Spider-Man for years, killing his first love. After that, it's going to be Magneto because he's probably the biggest villain in all of the X-Men universe. On top of it, he forms his own team and his own alliances of evil mutants. It's pretty great. And then it has to be my favorite of all time, Venom. I love Venom. Venom knows everything there is to know about Peter Parker, everything there is to know about Spider-Man. On top of it, he sits there and all he wants to do is kill him and cause carnage and chaos. Love Venom.
Gotcha. See, maybe I'll take some time and actually research more of these movies because, like I said, I kind of stalled off after Iron Man 1. I saw the Batman with... Heath Ledger, and after that, I kind of have tapered off. But if they've kind of made a big resurgence, I'm probably going to check out Deadpool because you gave it such a great review.
Deadpool's great.
I'm going to check it out. All right.
Very funny.
Continuing on the draft talk, the other major storyline, and one that hits home to me, and one that's now been debated, and it's a story that is actually very fascinating and interesting because it has legs. And when you do a podcast or you talk about things, you want to talk about things that you can really sink your teeth into and figure out. The whole Connor Cook dropping to draft pick number 100, not being drafted in the first couple of days, was a big surprise. Maybe it wasn't a surprise to a lot of people that were maybe in the know that were kind of peeking, but a lot of people had him projected not in the fourth round. Oakland traded up to get him with pick 100 to start the day, so great pick for them. I do believe that he's going to be a successful quarterback. But now it's spawned off a whole bunch of topics and debates as to why did it happen? Is it true? Is this whole captaincy thing really, really relevant? Do his teammates hate him? You got his coach now attacking journalist, friend of the podcast, Josh Katzenstein, for his article. You have journalists now weighing in on it, going, okay, was this story actually presented the right way and actually researched properly? And it's spawned off a bunch of different things. But the part I want to focus in on is whether you believe or not that his attitude caused him to drop. It's now in the past. There is a reason. he dropped, whatever it may be. General managers may know, maybe a few select people may know.
That was something that you and I discussed via text message. I believe it was Friday night or Saturday night, where I said to you, I was like, Connor Cook's still on the board. I was like, he must be a real dick in real life. And you were like, I don't remember exactly what you said, but we were sitting there going back and forth like, he must be a real jerk. That was the only thing we could come up with because he's showing all the tools to be a number 1 overall pick.
And so, I do believe if he had lingering problems with his shoulder, that probably would have been leaked by now. Something would have come out. So the tact and the way we want to look at it is Connor Cook right to be this way? Is this something in his personality that he should change? It's now caused him to lose a little bit of money. It caused him
a lot of money.
It's caused him to, be put under the microscope and be talked about as maybe potentially a jerk, a diva. There's rumors, let's say allegedly, that he might be a partier. Again, those are rumors. But the question I want to ask you is, does he have to change? I think he's had success on the football field, and if he wants to present himself this way, because the perception is that when he talks to people, that he comes off as being supremely arrogant and a person that just, when you walk away from him, you don't get that warm, loving feeling. You get that, this is a jerk kind of feeling. I say don't change. You ride this until you get another sign that this is not going to be successful. You ride this and you double down on it.
So until you get cut?
No, until you take this attitude of, I'm going to be a leader of this team, and the whole team revolts and it doesn't work. Because here's what he can do to mitigate this. Get on the field and win. Because if you're going to be an ultimate dick, if that's who you are.
Winning does solve all.
Winning solves everything, and he has the tools to do it. I really believe he's going to be a better quarterback because of this. He's under the microscope. He's now been told yet again, just like at Michigan State, hey, you win this, not good enough. Hey, you've gotten this accomplishment, not good enough. What did he do? Racked up more accomplishments. I feel like he needs some things to fuel him to continue his success and progress, and this is the perfect thing. I don't think he needs to change his attitude. Once he gets on the field and can win, then you have a guy like a Kirk Cousins. But I'm not blind to the fact that without winning, without success on the field, he's RG3, 100%. That's what RG3 was. RG3 was a guy that came in with an attitude problem, and when he came in, he rubbed his teammates the wrong way. And I do believe the RG3 factor was a big factor in that those guys were like, oh, okay, am I gonna block for you? No, I'm just gonna let the guy, smash your face in.
Exactly.
And so that's the fear.
He has to change. That's why he
does not have to change.
He does have to change because football is the most team-orientated sport in all the land. If you're a quarterback, you need 5 guys up front blocking for you. If you're running back, if you're dropping back the pass and they've got a rush coming at you, you need your running back to pick up that guy. And you just said it yourself. RG3 came in and RG3 won. RG3 had a magical rookie season. The guy looked incredible. He even went back out there when his leg was like a rubber band and tried to sit there and continue to help that team to win. And that right there should show you like, hey, this guy wants to win. But you know what? He had a bad attitude. He was a jerk. They hated him in the locker room. But if they hate you in the locker room, you know what's going to happen? They're just going to Olay it. Olay, go ahead. Go get my quarterback. Mess him up. Rack him up. Kill him. Go ahead. We don't like him.
The difference between RG3 and Connor Cook was the owner of the Redskins set him up with planes and treated him differently. Like, hey, here's everyone else's dinner table. RG3 gets to sit at the throne with me at my side. So that set up a dynamic where it was wrong. I think that he can be one of the boys if the boys believe that he can get them wins and if he's arrogant with them. Because if you think Connor Cook's the only arrogant NFL player.
You're now adding in outliers. You can't add in outliers. We're talking about the way he acts, the way he presents himself.
But don't you think a lot of NFL players are arrogant?
I absolutely. The thing is, you're not going to like everybody. Do you like everybody that you see every day? No, you don't. I don't like everybody that I see every day. I don't like everybody I have to deal with every day. But the thing is, you still have to respect people. And that's what it comes down to. He has to have the respect of his team. And if his teammates don't respect him because he treats them like a jerk, or he treats them like he's arrogant, or he talks down to them, or he belittles them, they're not going to like him, and they're not going to go that extra mile for him, and they're not going to try to protect him or help him out. They will set him up to fail.
See, here's the thing, as a psychologist and a guy that likes sports, so technically a sports psychologist, I believe you have
You're just making titles up for yourself.
I have to believe that an athlete at the quarterback position needs that to get elite status. And
it's good to have an edge.
Normal people can't relate to that. I'm thinking that
it's good to have an edge. Look, Justin Verlander just came out and tweeted that he's going to be dominant again. Do you ever see Justin Verlander being dominant again? He just gave up 6 runs in, 5 innings last night. No! Justin Verlander is basically on his way to being washed up. So yeah, you need to have an edge. You need to be a little bit cocksure of yourself. That's what makes you a great athlete.
Yes.
That is. It helps separate you. But you know what? You still have to respect people along the way.
And I don't see no proof that he hasn't. I don't feel like he's disrespectful. I feel like it's the perception that when you walk away that you don't feel confident this guy can be a leader. He is a leader. Winning
doesn't make you a leader, though. Winning doesn't make you a leader. That does not make you a leader. Winning makes you part of a team. And it maybe makes you great at what you're doing or makes you good at what you're doing. That does not make you a leader.
Does it make you a leader when you make a key mistake and you come back later in the game and you own up to it and you don't sulk and you continue to play well and fight for your team and do the best that you can for your university? I think that makes you a leader. I don't think you need to be stamped by your team or by your coach to be a leader to say, okay, I'm a guy that can help a football team win. So my thinking along the lines is people don't understand how to handle cocky people. I don't understand how to handle them. It's relatively quite easy.
You're the cockiest SOB I know. Right. It's annoying.
That's why I can relate.
Me and you get into arguments all the time because you're so cocksure of yourself.
That's why
I end up just hanging up the phone like I don't even know what the hell he's talking about. He's so damn sure of himself and he's wrong.
That's why I relate to Connor Cook.
It's because you're both douchebags.
No, I'm not a douchebag. We have to have that in order to push yourself for success. And I believe that Connor Cook does not need to change. And what I believe he needs to do is actually now take this and use it as fuel to actually, whenever I believe he's not going to finish his career with Oakland. I believe he's going to be used as trade bait.
He'll probably be traded, yes.
I believe that he'll get an opportunity.
Something we agree on.
And when he gets that opportunity, I see success. Without this whole ordeal going on, I would have said, maybe he could be an average quarterback. With this ordeal, you could have a Tom Brady on your hands.
I think he has all the tools in the world to be a great quarterback. He can throw guys open. He can throw them into tight windows. He's got decent footwork. He can read the field. He seems like he's a really intelligent football player. It's just his attitude. And that's what it all comes down to. Everything that's come out about him is he's got a bad attitude. And again, just because you win, it doesn't make you a leader. You've got to be able to sit there and you got to be able to get the guys to ride with you. Hey guys, the sign's saying we should go left, but I think we should go right. If we go right, it's going to be a lot better. And all those guys are looking around like, well, the sign says go left. We're all going to go left. You can go right all you want, all by yourself. See how far it gets you, all right? But if you can stand up, you can say, hey, guys, I know the sign says go left, but we should probably go right. I can see over there. That's where we got to go. Let's do it this way. And those guys are like, you know what? Yeah, he's got us this far. Let's do it. Let's go with him. We're all going to go right. Now, that's a leader. That's a leader.
Okay, now, do you know the telltale sign with RG3 that people started to notice the cracks was whenever he would get sacked, he'd have to stand up by himself. The lineman
nobody would
gather.
help him. Yeah.
Do you think Connor Cook at some point will get helped up by any offensive lineman? Will he see the field? Do you believe that he will find a team that will respect him and make him the leader of that team?
Yeah, his first preseason game.
That's it?
His first preseason game, he'll get picked up after he gets sacked.
So you foreshadow a career potentially like A.J. McCarron where he just sits in the wake, waiting for injury, doesn't do a whole hell of a lot.
No, because I think he has too much talent, and I think if he can show that he's not a diva in a DB, I'm sure somebody will come around and they'll trade for him. Or he'll be some type of, when you have too many good quarterbacks, it's not a bad thing. And Oakland looks like they have something really good going on. But you're asking, do I see a lineman picking him up and helping him up? Yes, I do. It'll be the first preseason game because he won't have had time to sit there and really tarnish his reputation yet. And the lineman won't be sick of him. And there'll be one of those guys out there who are trying to make the team and showing that they're a good teammate. He gets knocked down. He's going to go over there and pick him up.
Do you think Matthew Stafford's cocky?
Yes, but I think it's a little bit different with Matthew Stafford. He's kind of like that.
Cocky with no results.
He's like that.
That's the worst.
He's like that down south southern type cocky. It's like he knows he's good, but he doesn't have to tell you he's good. I feel like Connor Cook knows he's good, and he has to tell you how good he is. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, this is what I do. Guess what? This is what else I do. And if you don't like that, go kick rocks.
Tom Brady cocky?
Yes.
But now, what's the difference between Tom Brady and Connor Cook?
Tom Brady's beautiful.
Connor Cook 6'4", 220?
He's not beautiful. He's not beautiful like Tom Brady. I don't see Connor Cook rolling around a set of Uggs, making me think about getting a set of Uggs.
Oh, okay.
No, it's different with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's got rings. Tom Brady can be as cocky as he wants. He's got rings. And the thing is, when Tom Brady screws up and something bad happens to Tom Brady goes up there and he faces the music. You got to remember, too, Connor Cook had a very public display of douchebaggery. Yeah. You had the whole Archie Griffin thing where he sat there and snatched the trophy out the guy's hand. And yeah, he doubled back on that and said, oh, I'm sorry, and I didn't, it was heat of the moment, this, that. But that right there, I think, was a true glimpse into what his personality is.
I'm foreshadowing Connor Cook to have a better career than Jake Rudock. I believe that Connor Cook.
Yeah, the intangibles are totally different.
But
You got a quarterback who probably should have went in the first round, but he couldn't get out of his own way. You got another guy who's lucky that he didn't fall to the 7th round.
I got a quarterback now that I can compare to Brock Osweiler, to those second-tier guys, and let's see if he can elevate himself to tier 1. This would be actually an example of redemption to see how a guy that faced animosity and faced some strong turmoil, how he's going to handle it. Does he fade off into the sunset? One part, though, that I do agree with, if you started to look at his Twitter before the draft, he's already starting to do the advertising, was starting to kind of like, hey, look at me, I got this, he put a tweet out where I think he had the, soaps or shampoos, and he's like, hey, look at me, sponsored by this. And I was like, oh, that's a little early for that. It's a little, presumptuous for me. That's my reaction too, but I get it. He's a pro. And when I looked up Connor Cook, I wanted to see if we can get him on the show, just for the hell of it. Mm-hmm. He's already got a booking agent, and you can book him for things and things like that. So I could see where people kind of can look at him and go, he's the prototype douchebaggery. But I kind of like it. I'm not going to lie. I'm a fan of Connor Cook.
He wears green and white. That's the only reason.
Hey,
if this was a Michigan quarterback, you'd be frying him. You'd be like, God,
yeah.
He's such a jerk. This guy's an ass. So take off your green and white glasses and actually look at the situation.
I'm just looking at the bling bling of all the bowl wins. That's all.
Okay.
There we go. All right, cuz. I know you got to get out of here. Great podcast. Interesting debate. I think it could go further. I don't think this is the last we'll be talking about Connor Cook. Maybe he could be the savior for the Lions if maybe something crazy happens and maybe a trade will happen down the line and Connor Cook can be traded to the Lions. And we can have this debate year in and year out talking about the guy that was probably the A- story of the entire draft. My man. All right, well, get out of here. I know you got stuff to do. Thanks for coming in here. Doc and Jock, episode 143. We got a lot to get to in the next couple podcasts. Can't wait to do it, man.
Yeah, we do. It's going to be busy.
Uncensored, unfiltered, no outside influences other than the two guys sitting here at the table. Absolutely love it. Doc and Jock, episode 143. Thank you for finding us on all our various platforms. Look for us.
Go Tigers.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head, they counsel me, they understand, they talk to me. They talk to me, they tell me things that I will do, they show me things I'll